Hello, and welcome everybody to the Language Control Center YouTube channel. Despite the rather unique name, the goal here is to play some of my favorite games and to just have a good time. First up is a rather niche title, at least in terms of developer support, with Halo Wars 2. Now while I've enjoyed many of the leaders in this game, especially among the Banished, my go-to choice has to be either Atriox or Colony. Today, I'll be going Colony, as their unique units and unstoppable hero are well suited for players trying to have stronger than average armies without really trying too hard. As the match began, I noticed my opponent choose Voridus, which immediately made me worry about a potential rush. With combat spoils being as broken as it is, I knew he would have jump pack brutes at either my main or mini bases within the first couple minutes. To begin the game, I start by sending my grunts out to gather some resources and queuing up a chopper to help harass the enemy. I'm going to open with a double harvester this game to help produce a lot of resources so I can build up a quick army to defend my base from a rush. As soon as I can, I'm going to upgrade my harvester and I'm going to produce a skitterer to attach onto my chopper. Colony's choppers are especially powerful because with a skitterer attached to them, they can be used to easily harass the opponent even if they were to open with a chopper as well. Something you'll notice me do throughout the game is put rally point on key units. In the early game, I'll throw one on my chopper, so when my first skitterer is produced, it'll immediately go there to assist in its harassment. While my chopper is both harassing the enemy infantry and stealing their power, you may notice me moving it left and right ever so slightly during the engagement. Because of this micromanagement, enemy units occasionally will miss shots on my units, allowing them to live longer and be more effective in combat. After that quick engagement, it's time to queue up some more choppers and to expand my economy. Also at this point, most of the grunts are done collecting resources, so I'll send them around the map to either scout or to pick up mini base locations. Something I could have done at this point in the game was to take that mini base in the middle, but instead I decided to use my current resources for upgrades on my pads and for additional troops, though shortly after I am able to pick up the mini base closer to my main. Because of its position, it's a much more reliable investment, allowing me to safely produce either more troops or resources. At this point, the second chopper had arrived, and I planned to send it to the mini base in their corner of the map. One aspect that I've been trying to improve on is scouting, as it is vital to effectively countering your opponent. On the way, however, my opponent decided to attempt another push towards the middle. While the skidded chopper would have likely managed on its own, it was better safe than sorry. With my mini base complete, I was initially going to make the hunter captain. At this point in the game, it is a safe opportunity to begin gaining veterancy to make him unstoppable, but as I noticed their mini base, I decided to switch to a raid camp. This would allow me to continue my harassment with some Goliaths guarded by additional choppers. For my second leader point, I took the engineer swarm without a second thought. Despite my early chopper army, Vehicle Symbiote level 1 is simply not enough of a buff to take over the swarm. The heal and redirection it provides at such an early part of the game is invaluable for winning engagements. With no sign of the enemy, I had the perfect opportunity to advance my economy and map control. Taking the mini base in the middle allowed me to produce more troops closer to the enemy. With a future raid camp there as well, it could defend itself by producing quick suicide grunts. Additionally, I kept my pads upgraded and positioned my grunts to begin taking power nodes. It's always important to be proactive in Halo Wars, so throughout the game, you'll constantly be seeing me producing a variety of units at each base, as well as keeping my units on the move. It is especially important to spread out the production of units across your base locations, as it will greatly improve how quickly you can amass an army. It's at this point in the game where my enemy decided to attack my main base. While I expected more jump pack brutes to harass my power extractors, the grunts did have their mine upgrade, which quickly set my power extractor to red bar, but without the consistent damage of jump pack brutes, the grunts were unable to do any permanent damage before I could retaliate. As I recalled my roaming choppers, I called in a clutch engineer swarm to ensure that my base would survive fully intact. While the armies were clashing, I briefly turned my attention towards my mini base. I set a rally point from there to the enemy's mini to direct my Goliaths there automatically. That way, I could more effectively manage the ongoing battle at my base, while continuing the harassment towards the enemy. While my choppers hunted down the remainder of their army, my grunts had taken another power node in the middle and were working their way towards another. The center node is not only useful for keeping my economy ahead, but it provides a valuable line of sight in a key area of the map. As long as I controlled the center, I would know if my opponent decided to attempt another direct attack. As their forces dwindled, I decided to expand my coverage of the map by assaulting the 2 mini-bases that they had developed. My Goliaths were already making good work on the one in the back, while my choppers made their way to the middle. For my third leader point, I hesitated for a moment before picking the colony drop. While this is yet another excellent power at Colony's disposal, the Hunter's Brand was also worth considering, due to how my opponent was balling up his army. In addition, players at a lower level have a hard time avoiding most leaders' nukes, so the brand would likely be more effective at my rank. In hindsight, I probably should have deployed the colony drop on one of the minis to hasten the attack, but my opponent recently lost the majority of his forces, so my attacks were going mostly unpunished. As my Goliaths began to focus down the mini base, you may notice my cursor directing them towards and away from the base rapidly. This style of micro actually cancels their attack animation, effectively increasing their DPS. Because of this, I was easily able to retreat one of my surviving Goliaths. Another misplay of mine was leaving my grunts alone at the rear power node. Because of the damage from the previous 2 nodes, they did not have enough health to capture the third one on their own. I later remedied this by dispatching another set of grunts, but those resources would have been better spent elsewhere. As I prepared for Tech 2, I anticipated for my opponent to stick to primarily infantry. Because of this, I planned on building a foundry on my upgraded base to produce marauders. Aside from naturally countering his army, they are an excellent standalone unit for the mid-game. After forgetting to acquire the second middle mini-base, I sent my choppers back to pick it up. On their way, they engaged with some more enemy infantry. While the fight was surely in my favor, I opted to expend my engineer swarm to ensure that not a single chopper was destroyed in the fight. With more nodes and bases under my control, I was in a more than comfortable position in this game. I queued up some elite rangers to further harass their infantry, and began researching the Skitterer's upgrade, which is basically a necessity. Earlier in the video, I said that I was trying to improve my scouting each game. At this point in the match, would have been a perfect time to divert one of my choppers towards the enemy base to get a better understanding of their capabilities. Additionally, if I would have sent a chopper to their mini base, it would have been a perfect opportunity for a colony drop to quickly destroy it. For my fourth point, I made a rather atypical play by going back for the Hunter's Brand. Typically, I would have chosen teleport, as mobility is something that Colony struggles with, especially the Hunter Captain. But to my earlier point about being at a lower skill level, Hunter's Brand was more likely to be more effective against infantry that probably wouldn't walk out of it. As the Goliaths arrived at the enemy's mini, I decided that now would be the best time for the drop. As they arrived, I noticed that the War Council was active, meaning that it was either producing his hero unit or upgrading it. Rather than deciding to destroy the mini-base directly, I targeted the pad with my Goliath in an attempt to cancel his development as soon as possible. Now that my new mini-base had completed, I finally decided to build my War Council for the Hunter Captain. While it is a slow-moving tank, it was going to be deployed in the middle of the map, so I could quickly direct it wherever it was needed. After slowing down his leader's advancement, I continued my slow expansion across the map by picking up an additional power node and developing an expansion base. At the pace of this game, I would consider an expansion at 8 minutes to be rather slow, but I had bought more than enough time for myself throughout the entirety of this match. With my Hunter Captain on the field, I immediately shifted my global rally point towards him. Not only would he need support as I researched his upgrades, but it would automatically direct future skitterers towards him, making it easy to attach onto it. This play is not unlike the opening of the match, with my rally flag on the chopper. At this point, my opponent was likely tired of my roaming chopper gang harassing him for the past 10 minutes, so he sent a force of hunters alongside a marauder drop to assault my mini and power node. But with a perfectly placed hunter's brand and another engineer swarm, I managed to emerge victorious with only a single chopper lost. With that much of a momentum swing, I decided to divert my forces towards his newly discovered expansion base to begin closing out the game. As my army advances towards his base, I remain active back at mine as well, preparing more units and researching upgrades whenever they're available. As I arrived, it became apparent that it was only just being built, so I directed all of my forces onto it. As it fell, he sent a retaliation force consisting of hunters and his hero unit to combat my army for the final time. Upon noticing the hunters, I directed all of my vehicles towards his mini base and pointed all of my elite rangers at his infantry. With his hero on death's door, my opponent finally concedes the match.
Victory is ours.
I hope you all enjoyed the high-level pro gameplay alongside my expert commentary. Please let me know what you think down in the comments, as I'll certainly be trying to read them all. Feedback is much appreciated as well. Please let me know what I can improve on in these videos. That should do it for this one though. I hope to make more of these in the future with both improved gameplay and editing. See ya!